hills of Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
California. What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman. Coming to you on a Monday, November 10th, the LA Galaxy have a game this week. It's a friendly. The teams that are in the playoffs don't have a game this week because it's an international break. Just sort of a weird juxtaposition for all of this, but the LA Galaxy will take on Club America coming up here at the end of the weekend, so on Saturday. So we're going to talk a little bit about that game. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the news nuggets that have sort of come around, including a striker that could possibly a striker the LA Galaxy want to go after, but would he consider coming to the LA Galaxy? That's going to be something. Also some news on academy players and some other stuff like that. So to help me do all that, we're glad to have him back. It's Mr. Kevin the Panda Baxter. Kev, how you doing, bud?
It's Club America week, man. Get fired up.
Woo! Was that good? That was me being
good.
Fired up for Club America. I told you before we started, I said I'm going to this game because there is a game. That is the only reason I'm going to this game. It's not fair. I get that it's not fair, but it's not fair. It seems like nothing's going to come. What are we going to learn? This was simply a way to shorten the postseason. That's it, right?
Well, actually, you're absolutely right.
Oh, okay.
We'll talk about this later, I know, or maybe right now. But I did go out and talk to Greg Vanney last week. We had a long talk, talked about a lot of different things. And I did ask him, I said, I don't remember the team ever doing this before. I know back in the Beckham days, even when they went to MLS Cup, then they would go on kind of barnstorming tours. I think one year they went to the Philippines and then they went to Australia or somewhere. And that was Beckham. That was the club taking Beckham on tour and making money. This is not, the Galaxy aren't even putting this game on. I know they're making money.
Correct.
Or they're getting paid. I don't know how much they're making, but this is a totally different thing. The Galaxy have the players under contract, and we went through the roster decisions already.
Yeah,
the players that they kept under contract are the ones that they re-signed. They're Galaxy property. Galaxy can do whatever they want with them through December 31st. They could have friendlies or practice, whatever. I don't ever remember the team doing this before, and I asked Greg about that, and he said, look, we didn't make the playoffs. Our season ended so early, and we're going to have Champions Cup next year. We're going to start a little early the preseason, but there's 2 or 3 months there where there's a big gap. And he said that's just simply too long for these guys to go. So I don't know if the idea came to practice and then they decided to have the friendly, or if the friendly came up first. I don't know, what the timing was, but they did decide to stay an extra month to train. They've been training every day, just like they would if there was a playoff game. They're going to end. I assume that it ends with the Club America game. But Greg was just saying, look, it was just simply too long. They had some young guys like Harbor Miller, Elijah Winder. They need to be out there working every day. He said some of the veteran guys, and he mentioned Maya Yoshida as one, Greg did, is a guy who doesn't have to be out there for every training session. He's been around, been there, done that. He knows how to keep his body in shape. He's had a long season. So Maya's not out there every day. I don't know if Marco Royce, some of those other players are, but especially for the young guys. And Ricky Puig, according to Greg, will not play against Club America. I don't even know if he'll suit up just to avoid the temptation, but he will not play.
I mean, Ricky told us that he didn't specifically tell us that because he didn't want to talk to us. By the way, I loved getting messages from people who were like, who cares? Who cares if Ricky doesn't? I was like, okay, cool, whatever. I'm just telling you, hey, this is just my perspective. I've just been doing this for a while, and it might be, but I told you in that show last time, people don't care. It was 100%. I was like,
you're just bringing the 411, like the kids say.
That's is that what they
said.
say? I just watched
I don't
10.
know.
I just watched 10 Things I Hate About You, which, by the way, still stands
me?
up. Yeah, 10. Well, there's more than 10 things if it was about you, but no, still holds up because I know what the 411 and ain't no daughter of mine getting jiggy in some guy's ride or something like that. That was one of the things.
6'7", 6'7".
Do you know what
that means?
Did you?
I have no idea.
Okay, you shouldn't. Trust me. The kindergartners are saying it's almost dead. I've been saying that for the last 2 months, though. No, I think Ricky told us this too in terms of his social media. No, I'm not playing. Like anybody who mentioned that there was a possibility, he was like, nope, not happening. So it's like, okay.
But you know what's at stake? The Galaxy have already. I know they missed the playoffs in MLS by a lot, but they've already established themselves as one of the top clubs in Mexico. In Leagues Cup, they beat Tijuana, which finished 7th in the standings this year. Cruz Azul, which finished 3rd. They beat Santos, who finished 4th, and Pachuca, who was 9th. And now they get Club America, number 4 in the Apertura standings.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a clean sweep of the top teams in Mexico.
No, because as Joe in the chat room correctly points out, America starts their playoffs next week. Are they really going to bring guys to play in this game? If over under on how many triple-digit shirts are on the field
I love
for this
those
game on Saturday.
It's like Boeing aircraft running out there. There's 747s and 707s and all kinds of cool stuff. I love those 3-digit numbers.
I'm going to set it. I am setting the number of 3-digit jerseys that actually play on the field. They have to not just sitting on the bench doesn't count. Playing on the field, getting time in this 3-digit jerseys, I'm going to say is 3. There are going to be 3. Over or under?
Oh, it's going to be way over 3.
Okay, way over. So, that's where I'm setting it. I'm going to set it at 3.
It's going to be? It's going to be Galaxy against Club America Laundry.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, and I think they're going to use this as a tune-up, but as in not any of the players who actually have to play. Right? Nobody wants to. Here it is for America and for the LA Galaxy. The bottom line is nobody wants to get hurt in this game. That's the only thing you're worried about, not getting hurt in this game. I also think we talked about the guys who didn't have their contracts or their options picked up or were released. Those guys are technically still under contract too, but those guys I imagine won't be playing, right? So you're talking about guys like Diego Fagundes and Eric Zavaleta and who was else? Oh, Miguel Berry were the 3 that sort of didn't have their options extended there. So I would doubt that they would be back for this game because it serves them no purpose. And the Galaxy already said, "Hey, you don't need to be here anymore. Like you can go." We talked to everybody except for those guys whenever it was at the media availability. So that type of thing. So I mean, that's this game. I will tell you, and I think as I need to properly do, I even printed out my press release here so I can make sure we did it. The game coming up is on November 15th at 6:30 p.m. There will be a fan fest outside the stadium starting at 2:30 p.m., consisting of music, food, team mascots, trophies, and of course legends of each of those teams, I would imagine. So fans who want to buy tickets can do so at axs.com and ticketon.com. All Angelino families will be able to buy 5 tickets and get 1 free with the family 6-pack. So that is what's going on. That's what you can expect for everything coming up. We got a $10 super chat from Patrick. Patrick, always wonderful to see you. He says this is the center back TAM fund, right? So he's starting to kick it in. I think we don't have to give that to the team though, right? We get to pocket that, and then I don't have to give any to you. So it's working out well for me. So
you don't give any to me?
No, I try not to.
It stays consistent over the last 12 years I've been doing this.
100%. That's what we're trying. I don't want to get your hopes up. Yes.
You said there's going to be legends in the parking lot and 3-digit players on the field. There'll be more talent in the parking lot before the game than there may be on the field during the game.
Alexis says America does have some players coming back from injury that need minutes, so maybe you're going to see some of those guys come in. Although, if you have a guy who's coming back from injury, do you really want him to play in a game where there's no consequences for the other team, like the LA Galaxy? I'm not saying the Galaxy are going to play dirty because they rarely do, but it's all about situational. It's like Ricky Puig playing in this game. Do you want Ricky? Like, this is one of those. Do you want Ricky Puig playing in this game where it would be a Mexican team who was like, oh, well, we don't care if you just came back, injured. Like, we're going to come after you just like we always will, especially if it's people who are trying to earn spots, trying to show the coach something, that type of thing. Like, you would. you would almost think not to put him out there because one of the things Greg told us in our media availability was it's important to have Ricky training with the LA Galaxy because everybody here understands the significance of where he's at in his recovery and everything going on. He goes anywhere else, all of a sudden you have either some young kid or some guy who doesn't care, and Ricky gets his legs taken out from underneath him in some training thing, and next thing you know, he's injured again, right? So,
well, we talked about Ricky when I met with Greg last Wednesday, and I brought up my point, which I've been consistent on the show talking about. It's like if I'm Greg Vanney, if I'm a Galaxy fan, I'd like to see Ricky Puig on the field just to see, does he still have the speed? Can he still cut? What happens with that first tackle? And Greg said, those were all good points, but that it's too early. We're not there yet. He'll get to do all that in next preseason. He said that Ricky looks really good in training. And, I do think that there is a worry to be. I mean, Ricky is such a unique player, and because his skill set is so unique, the way he cuts, the way he moves, his speed, the versatility, a lot of those things, the knees are really important in that. And how will that ACL, number one, how will the ACL hold up? And B, how much confidence does Ricky have that it will hold up? And I think those are two big issues. And then Greg said, the first slide tackle, everyone's going to hold their breath because you just don't know, is
right.
Ricky going to bounce up, or is he going to worry about that leg so much? A lot of times you wind up hurting the other knee because you're protecting the hurt knee first. So there are some questions that have to be answered, but Greg said there's no need to get the answer now. We can wait until January, February.
Probably not wrong, as Will Kuntz said whenever he talked to us, Ricky's really on a 12-month sort of turnaround. We still haven't hit the 1 year mark from when he was actually injured, right? So we're approaching that, but we're not there yet. And watching the playoffs has sort of reminded me about how long all this stuff goes. I know they're going to change the schedule, so this is probably something that we don't need to argue about too much, but I enjoyed some of the playoff games, just switching over to the playoffs for a little bit. I enjoyed some of the playoff games. I enjoyed getting 3 games of Cincinnati and Columbus. I thought the San Diego-Portland matchup was really sort of a fun one, although that last leg San Diego absolutely dominated. Seeing Miami and Nashville, although again, Miami in that in the third game just really dominated and sort of did. So I guess it did everything that you want to do. But Kevin, it feels like we've been in the playoffs for 3 months already, and now we're going into an international break, and we're doing all this stuff. I mean, so the semi-conference finals are coming up, and it's like, oh well, you don't get them this week though. Sorry, you'll get them next week. That type of thing. This
is where MLS really shoots himself in the foot. I mean, the Seattle Minnesota game, which went to penalty shootout with keepers participating, was almost a classic, an instant classic, and now the fans are all fired up. Minnesota fans are all fired up, and they're, the response is wait a couple of weeks before the next game. Messi scored a brace for Miami. They played without Luis Suarez. They looked great. San Diego, as you mentioned, Dreyer 2 goals. He looked good too.
I can bring it up. All of the so you're going to have Minnesota versus San Diego. Or excuse me, San Diego versus Minnesota. Let's say it correct. San Diego will host Minnesota, who's the number 4. You're going to have Vancouver hosting LAFC. You want to circle a semifinal. That's the one I want to watch. Remember, these are single games now. We are done with playing multiple games. It's just one. So we get one game between Vancouver and LAFC up on the turf. That's in my mind. I've circled that one as that will decide who the Western Conference, who hosts for the Western Conference in MLS Cup. On the other side, Philadelphia and New York City. Cool. That's going to be a fun one to sort of watch. But the Cincinnati-Miami one is really one I want to watch. And again, Cincinnati is hosting Miami. I thought Miami was in trouble against Nashville. They played really well on that third game, and now you're sort of saying, are they hitting a form that is sort of sustainable? And Cincinnati had to just grind against Columbus, and so you're seeing all these sort of things. So, if I'm guessing right now, it's Vancouver or LAFC versus, I think, Cincinnati or Miami. I'm not a big believer in Philadelphia, but they could prove me wrong playing against New York City. So let's see how that goes. But that's my look.
The Vancouver LAFC, well, the whole Western Conference, I think, is interesting. Vancouver LAFC, Vancouver's going to host. It's going to be on the turf, which I don't know that LAFC, their stars, talking about Son now, I don't know how much he's played on turf. That could be a factor going up there. Another thing that could be a factor is that's actually on the first day. San Diego game with Minnesota is actually on Monday. LAFC plays rather early on Saturday. We have the international break. Sona is going to Korea. Boenga is going to Africa. Those are long trips, and then they have to come back and play one of the first playoff games. They don't get sort of an extra break to get adjusted. Vancouver has played really well this year. They're going to be at home again on turf. It's probably going to be pretty cold. That could be a great game.
It's gonna be inside though. It's not. There's no cold. They play inside. Don't worry about it. The temperature will be 68 degrees. All right. It'll be perfect. That's not the problem. No,
I thought that was an open air stadium.
No, if they want to, I don't even think they can open that roof. Yeah, no, I think they can open the roof, but it's not going to be open, so you don't have to worry about it.
Well, and then if LAFC wins that game, which I think Vancouver's favorite, if LAFC wins that game and they've advanced against San Diego, that's really interesting too, because we don't get into executives too much, but Tom Penn was the founding president at LAFC, built that team into one of the most successful expansion first-year teams in MLS history. Now he's the president at San Diego, first-year president. San Diego, as an expansion team, broke all of LAFC's records. So it's kind of like the Tom Penn Bowl if that actually happens.
It is. It's super interesting. Again, I like it. Somebody in here, Ricky goes, I may be delusional, but Galaxy could have upset some people if they made the playoffs. I watched. I'm gonna be honest too. I watched some of those playoff games, Kevin, and I was like, the way the Galaxy were playing at the end of the year, they could have played in some of these games.
I have a quote.
Yes.
Right here.
Yes.
I circled it. This is Greg Vanney.
Yes.
He said, I would say we had the worst start in Galaxy. I said, I repeatedly said, you guys had the worst season ever. And he goes, what I would say is we had the worst start in Galaxy history.
Yes.
But he said, but after that, I bet if we were to go to the playoffs, there wouldn't be many teams that would want to play us. I think by the end of the year, we were beating MLS playoff teams, and we beat the top teams in Mexico. So he agrees with you. He thinks that if they had made the playoffs, they would have been very dangerous.
That's a little blue sky for me. Just in general terms. Yes. By the way, categorically the worst start in LA Galaxy history. It's not even close, right? And blasted any of the other starts away with that. So horrible. I enjoyed the second half of the season in terms of watching the Galaxy get better. The problem was that there was almost no pressure on them. And they did well to not finish last, which is fine. And I've even sat here and said, I really like the way they were playing. And if they were playing that way, they were probably a playoff team if they could have started that way. So I tend to agree, but it's pretty sort of Pollyanna-ishly, like sort of, golly gee, we could have been there. It's not there to decide. Right. And I would also agree in some ways that, maybe they could have beat some playoff teams. There were some bad games in the first rounds of the playoffs too. And I don't think anybody in the Western Conference outside of maybe Vancouver, my big teams right now, Vancouver, LAFC and San Diego. And I thought San Diego was done for. I'm really surprised that they played as well as they did against Portland in that third game. So
the first two games were tough for them.
Yeah, it seemed like that, and it seemed like the whole Olaski thing where they let Olaski go was going to hurt them, and maybe it still does, but they're there. So you look at the Western Conference, and you're sort of like, those are the top teams. By the way, all West Coast teams, super West Coast, Vancouver, LAFC, and San Diego, up and down the coast. But I just that's where I think the strength of the Western Conference is. And if you tell me the LA Galaxy could have been one of those other teams that aren't sort of the strength, maybe you can. I don't know.
One of the things I think Greg did do well at the end of the season, and I think it was John Nelson or maybe Diego Fagundes that told us this back in May or June. He said that when they came back from the little break they had in June, that Greg Vanney said, look, it's the second half of the season. We were winless in our first 16. We were, I think it was, what were they, 1-12-4 at the halfway point. And Greg just said, there's nothing we can do about that. We can't win any of those games. They're gone. We're going to start the season again. We're going to have a 17-game season just like Liga MX, and we're starting fresh. And I think that approach kind of worked, because I think some of the players did flush that first half of the season and did sort of say, we're starting over. Well, I did ask Greg a couple of what I thought were, we went on a couple of tangents I thought were interesting. One was he talked about, look, at the beginning of the year, Paintsville was injured. We were missing Mark Delgado. He had a great season in the MLS Cup Championship season. Brugman was, really important part for us, was the MVP of MLS Cup, leader in the locker room. Caceres, a leader in the locker room. He goes, we started the season without all those guys, and then we lost Jovic. And so my question to that was, Well, you knew you were starting the season without those guys. You could have prepared. It wasn't, Delgado and Brugman and Caceres. That all happened in December. You had plenty of time to prepare for that. For you to throw up your hands and say, "My gosh, these were great players, and I didn't know we were going to miss them." And he said, our midfield was sort of devastated. Well, you had time to prepare for that. A and B. If you didn't want to devastate your midfield, then don't trade those guys. You could, there are other moves you could have made, and didn't really have an answer for that other than what we've heard from Will Kuntz too, which was that they thought Marco Royce would be a little bit better and healthier at the beginning of the season, and that kind of compounded all those things. And then we talked about the roster moves, which we've talked about. Almost everybody coming back. I think 17 guys, coming back. Mm-hmm. And I said, you just had the worst season in league history, and you turn around and sign the same 17 guys. Isn't that the definition of insanity, of doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result? And he said, this is not the roster we will start the season with. He said, there will be changes. And he talked about he wants more depth in the midfield. Right. Ricky's going to solve all the problems. That's sort of the Galaxy approach. Once Lord Ricky comes back, there are no problems. It's all rainbows and butterflies after that. And they really believe that. But Greg also said he wants depth because they are going to have Champions Cup, and Ricky's not going to play 90 minutes every game coming back. And then they're going to have a really compacted fixture schedule after the World Cup because of the World Cup break.
Before the World Cup, too. Before the World Cup and after the World Cup.
So he wants, he said Cerrillo, especially some of the young guys, really proved themselves this year. Hopes they don't have sort of the sophomore jinx come back and not be as good. He was really impressed with some of those guys, thinks they need more playing time, but he wants more depth. We went over the back line, and I said, it looks like pretty solid. You're starting. He goes, no, we need at least one more center back there. And then the real focus is on striker. He wants 2 strikers.
Do you want to hear where I'm hesitant on any of this? All right. And this was my takeaway from talking to Will Kuntz at Media Day and then talking to Greg Vanney after that for Media Day. Got them both in the same day, about an hour and a half, 2 hours apart from each other, probably. I think Greg Vanney is focused on getting a striker. I think that's one of his main key points, his main takeaways is getting a striker. And when I asked him, you're bringing back 2/3 of the group that only scored you 7 goals. He was the one who pointed out their strikers only scored 7 goals, but you're trying to bring back Nascimento. I don't know if that happens, right? That type of thing. That one's more of a stretch. But you're bringing back Christian Ramirez. And to me, Christian Ramirez was sort of one of those he's not coming back guys. Mostly because every time Greg Vanney talks about strikers, he finds a way to say that Christian Ramirez isn't mobile enough to do it, right? And he made that point very clear. I don't know if Will Kuntz is as focused on a striker as Greg Vanney is on a striker. And that, I think, is one of the concerning things. I agree, and I think in the conversations I've had that certainly I think the striker position could be something that's highlighted. So that's there. I think that Greg Vanney said we want another midfielder. I agree. So now that you're trying to find a midfielder sort of more in their prime that's going to be able to go in there and sort of help Ricky out. This is not going to be, a young player. This is not going to be, I would imagine, not a super old player, but it's going to be somebody who can play that position and play it well. And that's the depth that you're sort of looking for.
And he wants more of a holding midfielder, sort of someone to share that role with Cerrillo.
Cool. Okay. Understand it. Cerrillo's more of I think I would say a 6. Greg gravitates more towards 8s. Just the box-to-box guys. Gaston Brugman was an 8. And so I think Mark Delgado was more of an 8. So I think you get that. I'm like I said, Cerrillo's more of a 6, so you can help Cerrillo out, and Edwin had, I think, a really good year of stepping stones, and so you could get him some help in there and do that. You can't expect Edwin to play every minute of every game either, but that's fine. But you also know that the LA Galaxy, this is a spine question. It's sort of what we talked about last week, is there's a spine problem. One, figure out the goalkeepers, right? Now, I don't think they're going to be doing anything with goalkeepers, but we did have news that Max Crepeau from up in Portland seems to have said goodbye to everybody at the Portland Timbers. The only reason I bring this up is obviously that Will Kuntz, whenever he was at LAFC, had some Maxime Crepeau interactions there, and so could that be somebody that the LA Galaxy, because as I joked around in the Discord, the Galaxy absolutely need 4 goalkeepers again, right? That was really one of the things. So I'm thinking that the Galaxy are going to stand pat with the goalkeepers they have. Otherwise, they're going to have to move somebody if they're going to bring somebody else in, because having 4 goalkeepers, again, doesn't seem like that's something. So I would say look at the goalkeepers. He talked about bringing in another center back. I think you're looking at bringing in another starting center back, which to me indicates that a contract for Zonka or a contract for Yoshida gets bought out, right? I feel like there's too many and there's too much money being paid on those 2 players. I would personally think that it would be Zonka who's not coming back, but don't know. I think they're going to add a starting center back, and they want cap relief from whatever they have there. And Zonka's, I think 700,000, if I remember correctly, is something that they're going to want to alleviate themselves from. So that's a decision that's going to have to be made. Then you get into this midfield where you're going to have to spend, I don't know, $700,000, $800,000 to get sort of the player that you want, I think, to back up Ricky Puig in there. So that's a lot of money. And then you go to striker, and striker's super interesting. Now I'm going to point out, Kevin, this one was news. Tom Bogert actually talked about the news that Joseph Martinez, who was up at San Jose with Bruce Arena, they agreed to mutually terminate the contract. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying this 100%, and it's super important. Joseph Martinez getting let out of his contract as soon as or right before Tata Martino is returning to Atlanta is probably not a coincidence, right? It's one of those things where you're like, he wants to reunite with Tata. And that seems like the stars are aligned for that. However, Joseph Martinez was only making, and I say only, was only on, I think, $1.4 million up in San Jose. That's not a tremendous amount of money for a guy who put in...
Former Golden Boot winner. Former single-season record holder.
Yeah, he had 16 goal contributions, 14 goals, 2 assists. He outscored the LA Galaxy's 3 strikers who only had 7 by double. Right? So it's a guy who could absolutely play. Imagine Joseph Martinez sort of playing with Joseph Paintsel or Gabriel Peck, a guy who can get there in time probably still. I think he turns 33 in May. Is that it? I think it's 33 in May. So getting up there a little bit, so maybe you don't want to risk it, but does he want to go run on turf again? My guess is for Tata, he's absolutely in for Atlanta. But I do think it's at least something the Galaxy could technically afford if they sort of play some of their cards right on that.
I'm not so sure from some of the way Joseph Martinez has moved around, a guy as talented as him. I'm not so sure he's the best guy you want in the clubhouse.
You 100%. Thank you for bringing that up. He is a character question mark. Now, I thought he did well at Bruce Arena, right? He didn't flip any tables over with chicken on it, because that's what he did in Atlanta, I believe, at one point. He has some character questions. Now, as we've talked about many times, Will Kuntz looks at character and wants best character guys, right? So maybe he doesn't pass the character test, but he also got 14 goals last year with San Jose, and if you could put him in with Joseph Paintsel and Gabriel Peck, Joseph Martinez could be somebody who could finish up there. So, by the way, somebody who's in the league, there's sort of some requirements I think that we have to check off, which is, are they in the league already, which makes their acquisition and transfer to the LA Galaxy easier? Because I think Greg and Will have sort of indicated that they want guys who are sort of ready to go from the very beginning. You can't be spending time getting them, visas and everything else and international transfer certificates and all that stuff sort of in that window whenever everything's going to stop. Well,
if you're looking for a proven MLS scorer, I mean, Billy Sharp is still out there. And I think that's a guy that we could bring in. Now, Billy, you talk about the money, by the way. Greg sort of suggested, or maybe I'm just hearing you and I talk about this every week, but there seems to be a plethora of talented outside backs that they could move one of those guys. You talked about the money for the midfield. Now, if they decide not to bring back Diego Fagundes, that's what, $1.5 million, 1.3.
1.3.
Yeah. So that money could go there. That could also help with the striker. But you kind of intimated it. You sort of hinted at it without actually saying it. I'm not so sure that Greg and Will are on the same page on this. Yeah. On the needs, I think Greg has a very concrete idea of what he wants and how he wants to play, and he wants those players. I'm not sure Will either is on the same page or senses the urgency or senses the desperation that maybe Greg Vanney feels a little bit. And I think Greg I asked Greg that question, are you guys on the same page? And he said yes. But then he kind of went on and sort of then pulled back from that a little bit. And one of the things is when he talked about, look, we started the season, Mark Delgado had a great year. He wasn't there. We didn't have Brugman. And I started thinking, again, you guys, you made these moves. It's not like Mark Delgado left.
Right.
You traded him.
Yes.
And Greg did say, I'm not sure what the demand was for players out there and this, that, and the other thing. But the point is, Greg seemed like, hey, we started the season behind the 8 ball. We didn't have a midfield. We knew we didn't have a midfield. And Will was like, I had to move those guys, and Marco Royce was going to fill in. And so I'm just, Greg looked at that, and I felt like Greg maybe was saw it as a big concern, and Will didn't, and it turned out to be a huge concern in the first 16 games.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I would suggest that if you play that season 99 more times, that the LA Galaxy don't start 0-16, or excuse me, winless in 16. I don't want to say 0-16, but it was
4 and 12.
Yeah, I was going to say 0-12
Oh, 12 and 4.
So that's one of those things that I would sort of agree that perfect storm sort of left that go. But I want to see, and I think that they will. Here's the thing. I think you and I can cautiously say, hey, maybe they're not on the right page, but I think they're going to arrive at the right page. I don't think that there's, a divide there. I just think that they have to figure out and work that out and figure out what priorities are. And then money's going to come in. If you can get rid of Zonka, that's $600,000 or $700,000. If you can trade, I'm going to tell you somebody who I think the Galaxy should trade, Miki Imani. And I really love him. Amazing guy. Like one of my top, so much fun to watch, like really good guy. I think in a system where he gets to play more of a 6 and drop down into the 6 spot, that he was super effective for the Galaxy in 2024. But the bottom line is higher salary, international slot. You have two guys, Mauricio Cuevas and Harbor Miller, who can both play that position, and they're both, I think, on homegrown or super low contracts in terms of really what you're paying them. That's a huge relief for cap space and TAM and all sorts of different things that you can put in there. That would be one. And you would imagine that somebody could use Miki Imani within the league that they would look. So that would be somebody that you could possibly move in that position. I think Christian Ramirez is possibly somebody who gets traded before the season starts. I asked Will that question if he expected him to be there at the beginning of next year, just because I thought it was head scratching to see him come back. I still am in that. And I really like Christian Ramirez. Please, this is not a knock on him. I think he's a good guy. But I just don't think that Greg seems interested in using him. I mean,
he's a Hall of Famer now, I understand.
He is. We can actually bring that up. Christian Ramirez inducted into La Quinta High School Hall of Fame. He was a 2009 graduate and an All-American soccer player, a really cool guy. So that was something that the Galaxy highlighted on their page there. So a local guy, Kevin.
And the cheerleaders do not seem too interested in this ceremony.
They don't even know who that is. They got other things to worry about. They're talking about K-pop Demon Hunters right now. Okay, that's all they care about. So, by the way, that's all I care about right now, really, too, is K-pop Demon Hunters.
K-pop.
Yeah. Have you watched the movie yet?
No.
Nor
will I.
No. You listen. Pretend I'm Scott French for a second. You will enjoy this movie. I know you think you're like, nope, I'm not going to. Everybody who has watched it said, actually, that was pretty good. So go enjoy the movie. You can dance. Close the blinds so you can dance freely in there whenever it's going on. But K-pop.
Two Koreans I care about: Sonny at LAFC and Haesung Kim with the Dodgers.
That's it.
Other than that, yeah.
Let's see. Crazy says $5 super chat. Without Ricky, say injured again, do we have a team to make the playoffs yet? How many games do you think Ricky needs to be at his best again? Here's the deal, and I'm going to twist this question because I think that this is important for everybody to understand. You can't replace designated players. If Ricky goes down, there's not going to be anybody who can sort of just step in and be that same guy. One is Ricky is probably unique in Major League Soccer in terms of what he can do and how he plays. And two is that he's a designated player. You get another injured designated player, and remember, we tracked how many minutes the designated players play and everything that sort of goes on. It's super. So listen, you should take this with anybody. If somebody like Gabriel Peck goes down, there's not really much that you can replace him with. Now, can you put Mauricio Cuevas up there on the right hand side and let him bomb up and down? Absolutely. Are you going to be the same as Gabriel Peck? No, you're just not going to be. So there's little things you can have. You want to have somebody who can sort of step in, and yeah, I mean, if the LA Galaxy to the question, if the LA Galaxy are going to be competitive for an MLS Cup next year, Ricky Puig has to be one of your best players on the team, and he has to play significant minutes, and he has to be similar to his old Ricky Puig. I don't think there's any way around that.
You know what he reminds me of? And Royce did this a little bit when he was healthy. He did it for that 9 or 10 game span in the middle of the season when he was playing well. Ricky is the closest thing I can think of in soccer right now to a quarterback. And you have great wide receivers in Peck and Paintsill. You have good free safeties, and on the back line, whatever. But Ricky's the quarterback, and without the quarterback running on all cylinders and moving the ball around and running the offense, it's just not the same. Yeah, you have good players and guys going to make catches and people are going to score touchdowns, but the team is not the same. I mean, take Patrick Mahomes out of the Kansas City Chiefs lineup. Still got a lot of good players, but they're not the same. That's how Ricky is, and he is very unique. And it's you can put a guy in that position, but you can't put a guy in there that does the same things.
Yeah, and so I would suggest, all you can hope is that you have a backup that is, somewhat capable of doing what you're asking for. And listen, we saw this whenever the Galaxy were in 2024. Remember, Ricky couldn't play for a game or two, and Diego Fagundes was sort of in the middle, and they had Gaston Brugman in there. The Galaxy were able to play a style of soccer that was different, but was still effective. I think the other thing is you can sort of look at how they played in the MLS Cup too, Kevin. I mean, again, it wasn't the same team, but it was enough to beat the New York Red Bulls on the day, right? And excuse me, Red Bull New York. They're rebranding again. Didn't we do this?
Are they really?
Yes. Didn't we do this?
How about
already?
Red New York? How about Red New York Bull?
No, they haven't done that one yet. So maybe next time they rebrand. It's Red Bull New York again. They changed.
Wow.
So
they don't even play in New York. They play in Harrison, New Jersey, which is not New York.
You mean the same as the LA Galaxy who play in Carson? Is that what you're trying to point out?
No, I think that they're separated by a river.
I'm sure isn't there a river between
the LA River? Yeah. You walk across it in your bare feet.
This stuff always drives me crazy. I don't really care. Like, it's one of those. It's like wherever you play, wherever your fans are from, the whole deal. Like, it drives me just like I love watching people lose their mind about like the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. I'm like, yeah, that one's a fun one. Go for it. Have fun with that, right? But no, you can look at these things and sort of say that yes, you can survive. And I think Vancouver is a really good option to look at how you survive whenever you have injuries and how you can survive and how you can thrive whenever you don't have injuries. And it takes people stepping up into players, and it takes a really strong team ethic. I think what we saw in the second half of the season, which only does well for the Galaxy coming into next season, is that team ethic, that team understanding of how to play, that team dynamic grew in the second half. I don't want this LA Galaxy team getting a big head. Sometimes I think you and I, or mostly just me, whenever I say, hey, I really enjoyed the second half of the season because I thought they played better and I like to see sort of that, they need to think that they are the worst team in the world and they have to fight back from that to start next season. Simply resting on the laurels of the second half performance will be a disaster for them. If they start slow, people will get fired. That's what
Greg, at the end, I said, can you promise that you won't go 16 games without a win this next season? He goes, I absolutely promise that. And he mentioned that too. He said, if we get off to a slow start, the buzzards will start circling. And, he said, I don't know if I'll survive because, everyone's just going to be into like, here we go again.
Here we go again. Yes.
I did tell him, and I've told you, and I've said on this show, I was pretty impressed the way they played in the second half. And by not so much the record or how many games they won, but there was that game in Seattle when they were losing in stoppage time and John Nelson scored the goal. Why is he humping 6 minutes into stoppage time for a team that's going to win 7 games? Why is he even trying? Well, he was. And that happened in a number of different games where they came back late in games when by all human nature would have just said, let's pack it in, this is stupid. I think there was one game in Colorado at altitude where they fought to the finish, and it's like, why are they doing this? They're not going anywhere. And so that to me was pretty impressive.
It is, again, I agree with you. I think that's sort of spot on. If we're going on, and by the way, Andres, $2 super chat. What about Felipe Mora from Portland as our number 9? Certainly a guy. I haven't looked at his stats. Let's see. Let me see if I can pull up his stats real quick. But,
you think Miami would trade that Messi guy? They just re-signed him.
I think he's probably staying.
He'd fit right in.
I was at Josh Storytime. One of my good friends is German, and so he invited us over for Oktoberfest. Now we tried to do Oktoberfest in September as it was appropriately called for, right? Or then we tried to do it in October because Oktoberfest is supposed to take place in September because you're getting ready for October. That's what it's about. It's like, oh, here comes October. So it's supposed to be like late September that you do Oktoberfest. Then we were trying to do it all of October, but we all have children. They have 2 kids. We have a kid. There's soccer games. There's everything. So we couldn't do that. So finally, on November 8th, we were able to put together
Novemberfest.
Yes, Novemberfest. So we did our Oktoberfest there, and I was like, "This is awesome because the Miami game is on Nashville. We're going to be able to watch the second half. And this will be good." That game was over. Messi had already decided that game was going to be over by the second half, and we were sort of watching it, going, "Man, I think that Messi guy might be good." So. It was pretty fun to sort of watch that.
He played with Ricky in Barcelona. I mean, maybe Ricky ought to call him and just see if he'd like to come out.
I think that's what you need. You need Ricky out there. Felipe Mora, 5 goals, 4 assists, so 9 goal contributions. About 17, a little shy of 1,700 minutes in there. 33 games played, 20 games started. Wouldn't exactly be a yes, maybe in the right system, maybe you can find something. I would say, but. Not exactly. You can go back to 2024 though and watch him put up 14 goals, right? But in 2023 he put up 6 goals, 15 games played, that type of thing. So you can sort of go back and see him seesawing. If you're a gambling person, and maybe Will Kuntz is, maybe you could say he's on the yo-yo has dipped, so it's time for the rise, right? You're ready for the recovery. So maybe you could put something like that. Maybe it's by committee. If Christian Ramirez is staying, then you have somebody like Moore.
I don't think the committee thing works with this team, not the way it's set up.
Yep.
And Greg talked a lot about wanting a mobile guy. So to me, that mobile means young.
Dan on the text line, by the way, says that Golden from K-Pop Demon Hunters landed a Grammy nomination, Mr. Kevin Baxter. So it is worthy of your time. Scott French also endorses watching K-Pop Demon Hunters. He doesn't. He would never do such a thing. But I would like to point it out. For people who don't know, and I'm sure we've talked about this. Scott French is a movie aficionado in a way that, like, technically that should be his profession, is grading movies. So when you ask Scott French, like, "Hey, Scott,"
and I would recommend not doing this.
No, sometimes it's useful. Say, "Hey, Scott, I wanted to watch some Westerns. Can you give me a list of Westerns I should watch, like the best Westerns?"
Then come back 2 hours later and he'll still be talking.
Yeah, well, no, you just have him email you, so that way there's not a whole thing. Now, the first 6 paragraphs of the email will sort of set you up for it, and then he'll give you the list of his top 150 Westerns, ranked in order from best to worst, but it didn't include the spaghetti Westerns in Italy, because I didn't say to include those, but he would suggest eventually going to those ones because they're actually better of the genre, is the Italian Westerns, the spaghetti Westerns. So, anyway, that was it. Scott
really likes movies that nobody else watched.
That's correct. That is 100%. So
art house movies, yeah.
Always nice to get there. One of the other things, if we're talking about roster build and sort of roster build out and how that can sort of go, is this. And there are some younger players on this as well. So we talked about, hey, what are some of the guys who are expensive that maybe you could move and free up some space and use young guys to backfill them with because you are convinced that those guys can handle it? Yamane is one that pops to mind. Zonka, in terms of moving him because it's cap space, and then you can come back and backfill that with the starting center back. So those are sort of some of the ones you had. Now let's talk the flip side of this. And the Galaxy have had some success at the flip side of this. There is a rumor out there, don't know if it's true, haven't asked, but 15-year-old midfielder Vinny Garcia, who is in the LA Galaxy Academy, is apparently wanted by Chelsea. Now, do they really want him, or do they just see him as an asset of which to move and trade? This is how things happen all the time. So it wouldn't surprise me if Chelsea's like, this is how we can make some money. We can buy this guy. We can let him train down with our young, or we'll loan him out, or we'll do some other things. And then we'll sell him again and we'll make more money, because whenever you come from Chelsea, Kevin, it's worth more money than when you come with the LA Galaxy. And so
put that picture back up.
Okay.
Is that a picture of Vicente?
Yeah, that is Vinny himself.
That 15-year-old kid never gets carded. He looks like he's 45.
He does, and you know what? He plays older than he is too. He just got called up, I believe, to the U17's men national team. Let's see. I'll give you the press release right now that came out for these younger kids. Harbor Miller, Ruben Ramos Jr., Vinny Garcia, and Dylan Vanney called up for the US U19s and the U17 men's national team training camps during the November FIFA window, which is happening now. And so you're getting Vanney, Ruben Ramos Jr., and Miller are at the U19s, and Vinny is down with the U17s during that time. So the U17s...
But Vicente Garcia is with Mexico, right?
No, he's with the U.
Oh, he went with the U.S.
Yeah. Yeah, Vinny's with
that Dylan guy. That last name sounds familiar.
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. That U17. So anyway, he's down with the U17s. They will be with U16 boys national team head coach Alex Aldaz, and will train from November 10th to 18th in Dubai, and continuing in preparation to qualify for the 2026 FIFA U17 World Cup in Qatar. So that is the U17 men's national team there that they're eventually going to do. And then U19s will head to Wrexham to train and participate in the UEFA U19 youth tournament from November 10th to 18th as the group of players continues the path towards qualification for the 2027 FIFA U20 World Cup in Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan. So that is what's going on. The U19s will face off against Germany on November 12th, and then take on Wales on November 15th. And let's see, anything else? And close out the tournament against Japan on November 18th. So those
that U17 team has a kid from the Orange County Soccer Club as well, from the USL Championship team.
So
they get to go to Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan, huh?
Azerbaijan, eventually, apparently. That's where they're.
How did I miss that trip?
I mean, these kids get to play in some crazy places. I mean, there's a lot of things, and I know you have this where you are this reporter, the sports reporter, and all of a sudden you're out there and you're like, what am I doing? Like, how did I end up here? Like, like, where's the place that you went to where you're like, this is pretty crazy to chase a story?
Uganda.
Why
was, yeah.
That was, you're like, what am I, how did I end up here?
Why am I here?
Yes, this is one of those. So, but my whole thing is that if you look at younger players, and the Galaxy have had some success in selling some of these younger players, look at the pipeline. Look at who's going to be in front of Vinny. There's all these sort of things. Yes, you want to develop talent to get to the senior team, but we know that the LA Galaxy like to have developed international players at some of these big positions, right? So if you're a striker, that's tough to do. If you're a midfielder, in some of the skill positions, it's harder to find those younger kids playing time. And by the way, maybe to their detriment sometimes. Maybe the LA Galaxy lean on over expensive international names from established players. And if they could find somebody who maybe was equal, or maybe if you develop them could be better than some of those guys from the lower side and the academy side, then that would be a boon to your roster. That's sort of what I would suggest you should do whenever you're looking at guys like Harbour Miller and Mauricio Cuevas, is put them on the senior team and get rid of some of your heavier international talent. And now all of a sudden you have cap space savings that you can use in other places, so you can shuffle things.
The thing is, you talked about the four guys going to play with the U17s and U19s, and these are kids coming out of the academy. We talked about this before, and I went over it with Greg, and he agreed that, at heart, he's a player development guy. That's what he likes to do. And when he came in, when he came here a couple of years ago, 4 years ago now, immediately got his hands dirty with the academy. Yeah. The academy now, he says, is where he thinks it should have been all along. He's happy with the academy. He's done a lot of work there, that unsung work. We don't know how much he's done, but it's a ton. And he's happy with where it is now. And it's starting to produce players. We're seeing a lot of young players coming up on the first team, but we're also seeing a lot of these academy players. When you have that, you're right. By the way, with the academy, you get those young guys in there, and they're cheaper and all. But a general manager once told me, it was a baseball general manager, but the same thing holds. Every one of those players is an asset. Okay. Mm-hmm. He's an asset. You could put him on the first team. He could play. He could play 90 minutes a game. That's an asset. Or he's an asset because you trade him, and we can trade within the league now. You trade him and you get back something you really need, be it money, another player, combine him with two players to get a starter that you need. So my point is, the academy, now that Greg has developed it to the point where now it is producing assets, and that will turn into first team minutes, either the player or the player that is traded to acquire somebody. Those assets are now ready to be. It's like fruit on the vine. It's ready to be picked.
Yeah,
and it hasn't been that way for a long time.
No, it isn't. And so you can sell players where you can give you sort of an immediate transfer fee and an infusion of cash. And if they're homegrown players, you get to keep most of that, and you can convert some of that to general allocation money. You can do a lot of things that sort of help you expand your roster by doing that. Also, sell-on clauses. Look at how the LA Galaxy's sell-on clauses for, Bibu was probably the biggest one right now, right? He goes off, he's sold to some club, and then Genk comes in and wants to buy him, and there's a 25% sell-on clause, and the Galaxy net another, $400,000 or something like that. That all gets put back into the barrel, into the bucket. So, Vinny has to sort of wait until he's 18 because you can't move outside of the United States in a transfer until you're a professional, until you're 18, until you're an adult, unless you can find some sort of passport in order to make that happen. I don't know if he's able to do that or not, but basically they're saying that they're going to have to wait till he's 18. But making deals with clubs now for that, and sort of locking that stuff in, having these longer term sort of deals that can play out, means the LA Galaxy can still use him, means, you know, the LA Galaxy could possibly put him up even on the senior team before he's 18, that type of thing. And at 18, Chelsea sort of gets a chance. And if you move him, when you move him, that can also free up some cash, right? You could also go and try to sell Mauricio Cuevas inside the league. People freak out whenever I say that. Or Harbor Miller. You could sell Harbor Miller's got a big upside right now. Sell him somewhere, and the LA Galaxy could probably get something in return. I don't think that's going to happen, because I think the advantages of the salary cap that you get with the younger players is far out, sort of paces the cash now. But when the Galaxy are looking to make things done, if Greg Vanney wants a striker, if Will Kuntz wants a striker, $1.5 to $2 million, probably, you know, right around the 1.8, you're going to spend a lot of money, you know, maybe at the low end, $900,000, but that's a lot. You want to get sort of a guy who can play in the midfield, that is a developed guy that can really do things for the LA Galaxy, help split some time with Edwin Cerrillo, sort of be that 8 that goes back and forth. I mean, you know, we'll continue to talk about Lucas Sanabria and whether or not we see him sort of developing into what he could possibly be. But if you're going to have somebody in there, that's another guy who's probably going to cost you anywhere between $700,000 and $1.5 million. So these are targeted allocation money players that you're sort of looking at. That's a lot of money you're going to have to come up with, whether that's general allocation money, whether that's targeted allocation money. You're going to have to figure out and sign some of that. Some of that goes with like Zonka. Some of that goes if you move Yamane. You know, you got some back whenever you didn't extend Diego Fagundes. And yes, I think the LA Galaxy and Diego Fagundes would love to talk eventually once free agency sort of opens up and Diego sees what's out there. But I don't think that's happening. Everything I've seen so far says the money that would probably be offered for somebody like Diego to come back will be well below what he could probably get somewhere else. So,
which is a sad thing. I'd love for him to come back, but I agree with you when you're going through the numbers there. Remember, the Galaxy's payroll this year was just over $22 million.
Mm-hmm.
It was about the same as it was the year they won MLS Cup. Salary cap went up. They had to take care of those bonuses. They actually fell. I think they were 3rd or 4th in the league. Now I think they're 8th or 9th in the league, staying at the same place. Salary cap will go up a little bit, but as you're going through those numbers and you're adding, you know, how much the one salary that stands out there is that 1.3 from Fagundes, and he's certainly not going to get that. How much
Galaxy.
of that he gets? Yeah. How much? Yeah. Right. He could get from another team. How much of that he gets will determine whether he comes. I mean, I'd love to have him back, but I just don't see the math working.
Yeah. If I'm guessing, if you want, like, if a team could underpay for Fagundes and he would go, it might be somebody like Austin. Where he lives, right? I believe he has a house in Austin. I believe a lot of his family's there as well. So Austin, that one seems like that one could be a reunion for them. You know, again, New England might be one that looks. I thought Montreal off the top of my head as well. You know, I don't think he probably wants to go up to Montreal. Montreal would have to overpay him, right? You know, New England would probably have to pay him maybe similar to what the Galaxy got, and Austin might be able to pay him less. But still going. And like, if all things were equal, where Austin and the LA Galaxy were the exact same in terms of money, then he'd probably go to Austin, right? In terms of cost of living and everything else. So, yeah, it's sort of one of those things. But yeah, that's the roster build stuff that we're sort of talking about. I think the big takeaway from everything that you talked to Greg about, at least in our conversations, is, you know, this is going to be don't expect this roster to be the same. And by the way, that could mean, Kevin, that there's just one change. Like, right? It could be there's just one addition. There could just be, that means the roster's not the same. But I still feel like there is more, and there's going to be, greater change with what the Galaxy are going to put out there in January.
Well, and Greg seems to have an idea. Greg seems to know what he wants to do. It's not going to be, you know, one of these things where Will says, hey, we got this guy, let's sign him. And Greg says, great. I think Greg says, no, this is what I want, and this guy didn't fit that profile.
Right, yeah, and I think that's sort of how it's going to play. Adam, by the way, $5 super chat says, didn't know you guys were having a show tonight. Are you going to the stadium on Saturday? I said I will be there. I don't know if it's going to be televised. I've actually asked the question. I have not. So far, anything I've seen, there is no indication that this game will be televised, streamed, or anything else. If that changes, I will of course let you know. No podcast for us on Thursday, so just look for social media, that type of thing. We'll get you going.
This is the Club America preview show.
Yeah, because we were like, hey, there's a game, and I guess I'm going. That was really where we're looking at this. It's just a game to see who, like, just don't get hurt. That's it. Just don't get hurt. That's it. It doesn't matter what the score is. It doesn't matter how it is. Please go have fun. Enjoy if you're there, because we don't often just get to see live soccer all the time, and it's been taken away from us, and we get one more, and that's going to be it. So a lot of fun stuff.
I probably shouldn't say this, and I'm really
think about it.
Trying to bite my tongue not to say it, but I'm thinking about it. But I feel like maybe this is the public service. What do you think the possibility is? It's a game, the LA Galaxy. It's a soccer match in LA against a Mexican team. What's the possibility that some federal agents show up at this game?
I mean, so far we haven't seen them actually come on property, and the Galaxy have been pretty intent on them saying that they can't come on property without their permission. So I would say it's pretty low. That would be mine. So, but always.
Remember how scary that was during the summer?
I mean, I think it's still scary. As far, I've seen far too many things happen all around me to be like, that's still not cool. So doesn't surprise. Again, it wouldn't surprise me, but I would still say that I think that's pretty low. So.
I hope so. I hope you're right.
By the way,
you're right.
Dan wrote in. He wanted to say it is the 250th anniversary of the Marine Corps. So semper fi to all Marines, and thank you for your service. Happy birthday to the Corps. And then tomorrow is Veterans Day, so want to certainly say thank you to everybody who served in our military for all the sacrifices you made on behalf of all those people who haven't. Much respect coming from this side. Thank you for your service. We'll certainly remember all of our fallen veterans tomorrow on Tuesday. And take a second to thank somebody who was in the service that they're next to you. Always nice. One of the guys, by the way, you want to know the guy who talks about Joe Tutino. Joe Tutino says, anybody in uniform, thank you for your service every single time. Every single time. Does not miss a beat, will not miss a beat, will not let the day go by. And I think that's maybe something we can all do. Well,
one of my coolest soccer memories was during the 2019 Women's World Cup in France. The U.S. national team, both the men and women, they have a friends and family program where players' families can come, and U.S. Soccer gets them hotels and takes them around. They also do events for them on days between games. And they were playing in Le Havre, which is close to Normandy. And so they took the whole friends and family, got buses and took them out to Normandy, and they invited some journalists to come. It was amazing because U.S. Soccer had arranged for a veteran who stormed the beaches in the first wave. Not one of those guys that came like a month afterwards.
Right.
He was there on D-Day, and he spoke to us and told us what it was like. And a question I always wanted to ask, and I asked the family, this is your day, but can I ask a question? I really want to go ahead. I said, how did you do that? I mean, the thing is coming down, and you're running out there into the surf, and people are getting shot all over you. And the guy looked at me and said, no offense to anybody here, but none of you could have done that. Then it's like, of course, no. And he talked about they had grown up in the Depression. It was tough to it's not like now. It was very tough. Life wasn't cheap, but life was really hard. And so as difficult as that was, his feeling was like, it really wasn't that difficult when you think of where he came from.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
there's no way I could that. No, I can't. No, I'm not going to do that. I can't. I'd love to think I was brave enough.
That's it. I would love to think that I was. I don't know that anybody knows how they're going to react in those situations. But I mean, certainly for some of those guys, they were ready. That was their time, and they went out there. I have some family members who died in dropping from the 101st Airborne into D-Day. Yeah, So it's like real quiet in my family, and I always have to try to like dig up the details on it. One of these days I'm going to get like really into it and figure out what's going on, but they never made it to the ground apparently. So it was one of those that wasn't a good show for them. So, all right.
Wow. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, about me. What did I have to do with
your family?
Yeah, my family. Yeah, my family. My family. It wasn't me though. Let me tell you for sure. I have nothing to do with it. So
my uncle was on a battleship in the Pacific and was one of the occupation troops at Nagasaki.
Oh, jeez.
He showed me a Japanese rifle once that he had in his garage, and I go, "How'd you get that?" He goes, "Well, when we went ashore at Nagasaki, our first mission was to gather all the weapons and blow them up, destroy them, so the Japanese couldn't have them." He goes, "Guess this one didn't get thrown in the pile."
That's crazy. Anyway, so thank you to all of our veterans. Anybody who's listening, we appreciate you. Thank you for your service. We'll take the day in remembrance on Veterans Day tomorrow. And then, of course, everybody will be back at the stadium on Saturday night. By the way,
not everybody, not everybody.
By the way, one of our chatters said, it was sort of sold out for the America and Toluca match and that type of thing. I mean, they've had plenty of Mexican teams and that type of thing going on at Dignity Health Sports Park this year, so I wouldn't expect that there's going to be any change or anything different from that. So
No, I mean, Club America is the most popular team in Mexico. Some people think it's Chivas. It is Club America. This is like if you lived in Switzerland and the New York Yankees came over. It doesn't matter to you if it's all AA players.
Yeah.
It's the New York Yankees. And so fans here are going to come out and see Club America.
That's it. Scott in the chat room says, let's see.
Scott French?
No, not that Scott. Scott says, both of my grandfathers, me and his 3 brothers, all in the service. Scott, thank you for your service. If that's the case. Thank you to your entire family for their service. That's awesome. So certainly we appreciate that. All right. I think that about does it. LA Galaxy Club America coming up on Saturday. We've talked about some of the roster decisions, everything that's going on. No podcast on Thursday again. I'll be out there on Saturday scrambling from the train club. And just a heads up from the train club this weekend, 15th and 16th, 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. We are doing a toy drive for Spark of Love. So you can bring new unwrapped toys to the train station, put them in the bins there, and then hop on your free train ride. If for some reason you don't have a toy and you want to provide a toy, we have a gift shop there that you can buy one from and then pop it into those.
So if you bring a toy, you get a free train ride.
See, I would love to say yes, Kevin. That's how this works. The whole deal. But the bottom line is our train rides are always free. So there's,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, you shouldn't have said that. We should have played out the free.
I feel like
present and a free train ride.
I feel like it's false advertising. But if you can bring a train, the whole deal. I think some members of the fire department might actually be there on Sunday as well. So if you're thinking about coming down on Sunday, it would be.
Well, apparently they were there one time because you set part of the train on fire.
But no, we don't do that. We try not to. So anyway, we'll see how all that goes. But if you want to, you're more than welcome to come down, and I'll see you at the train club this weekend. So anything else, Mr. Kevin? I think we're good, right?
I didn't have anything when we started.
We know. We saw. All right. If you're looking for Mr. Kevin Baxter on any of his social media, it's at kbaxter11. Head on over to latimes.com where you can find all of his writings. Anything you want, latimes.com. So check that out. Did you have your Greg Vanney story out yet? Is it out? Or?
It'll be go up. Well, right now we're talking Monday night. It'll be up at 4 a.m. Tuesday.
There you go.
And check my social media for my great picture from the World Series.
That's right. Still trying to pop those views, huh? All right. Cool.
Yep.
All right. If you're looking for me on any of the social media, it's at Galaxy Podcast, and of course, cornerofthegalaxy.com, YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, any of those places that you can find your podcasts, you can find Corner of the Galaxy. We will, of course, be back next Monday. Kevin won't, but I will be, to talk about this wonderful game against the LA Galaxy and Club America and dive us deeper into that postseason. Enjoy some of the playoffs that are happening next week as well, but we'll be back to sort of guide you along. So, for Mr. Kevin the Panda Baxter, I'm Josh Pato Guesman, and you've been watching to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast, and be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.